Watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Voting underway in Sri Lanka's parliamentary elections. 17 million voters to elect lawmakers for 225 seats with 8,800 candidates in fray. Joe Biden meets US President-elect Donald Trump at White House. Trump picks Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Marco Rubio proposed as Secretary of State. Campaigning for assembly elections in India's Maharashtra and Jharkhand in full swing. Leaders of various political parties holding multiple rallies. Prime Minister Modi to address rallies in Maharashtra today. And in sports, Paris authorities ramp up security ahead of the France versus Israel Nations League clash on Thursday. Voting for parliamentary elections in Sri Lanka is underway at over 13,400 polling centres across the island nation. Voting commenced at 7 a.m. and will continue till 4 p.m. local time. There are 17 million voters eligible to cast their votes for nearly 9,000 candidates. The elections are important as they are expected to completely redefine the political landscape of the island nation. Under Sri Lanka's proportional representation system, 196 members will be directly elected across 22 constituencies, and the remaining 29 seats will be allocated based on each party's overall share of the island-wide vote. The election became necessary as Sri Lankan President and National People's Power Party leader Anura Kumara Dissanayake dissolved the parliament on 24th of September to clear the way for the general election, days after the Marxist-leaning leader was elected president on a platform for change. All right, for more on this, we are joined in by Dr. Ahmed Muin Farooqi, and he's joining us live from Colombo. Ahmed, good morning. We tell our viewers that voting is underway in Sri Lanka. To begin with, tell us how has been the voter turnout so far?
Good morning, Preeti, and good morning to all of you viewers. Yes, there has been considerable interest among all the voters since 7 a.m. in the morning. Voters have been visiting the polling centers and casting their vote. The numbers have not yet been disclosed by the Election Commission as yet, but going by the usual numbers and going by the usual trends, it appears like the voting is on a decent number as of now. However, traditionally speaking, parliamentary election sees lesser turnout as compared to the presidential election. We had witnessed around 78% turnout in the recently held presidential election, and analysts believe that this time around the voter turnout might drop a little bit by about 5 to 6%. So probably we are hoping to get around 70 to 75% of voter turnout by the end of the day. Preeti.
All right, Ahmed, Sri Lankans are voting in snap parliamentary elections. Also, President Dissanayike's NPP seeks a two-thirds majority to stabilize the country post the crisis. Help us understand, how is he poised?
Absolutely, it's a very, very big test for the NPP government as of now. Yes, the president requires a majority, and not just a majority. He has talked about getting a two-third majority so that he can take forward certain radical reforms in the country's, the economy, as well as several measures that he has promised during the election campaign, for which he would require numbers sufficient enough to go ahead with constitutional amendments. Now, however, whatever has been talked about, the analysts believe that he had secured only about 42% of vote in the presidential elections held in September. That was well short of 50% majority. However, it was for the first time that the second round of counting had been held, in which only the top two contenders were counted. Now, if we talk about the parliamentary elections, it's going to be a different kind of a scenario wherein now each candidate will have their own say with regard to getting a popular kind of a vote in their own constituency. Now, it needs to be seen. By tomorrow, we'll get to know which political party and grouping will get how many seats and how many candidates will be elected from their parties. So it is very difficult as of now to predict which way the election will sway and which way the voters will be voting towards. However, yes, analysts have talked about the NPP getting a comfortable majority. It needs to be seen how much numbers they will be actually getting, if they will be able to reach the two-third mark or not. That is difficult to say as of now.
All right, that is difficult to say as of now, but we'll have to see how the day ahead pans out. Sri Lanka follows the proportional representation system. Ahmed, throw more light on the electoral process in Sri Lanka. Help our viewers understand the process.
Preeti, you're right. It's a proportional representation system. There are 8,800 candidates in the fray for the total number of 225 seats, out of which 29 are, they will be nominated through the national list, and 196 will be elected directly to the electoral districts. There are 22 electoral districts in the entire island, and on the basis of the party-wise securing of the votes, vote percentage-wise, national seats will be allocated to various parties. In addition to that, if we talk about how the process of voting actually happens, voters will be allowed to choose the political grouping or party, and up to 3 candidates they can choose. They can mark it on their ballot papers, and thereafter, when the counting happens, initially the political party and grouping will be first counted, and later on they will assess which candidate gets how many seats and how many seats will be allocated to each of them.
All right, Ahmed, also get us more as to what are the challenges that are faced by the island nation at present. Added to that, an IMF delegation is due in Colombo on Thursday to review the economic progress before releasing the next tranche of $330 million of the bailout loan. Get us more as to what is your analysis of the status of the economy since the political turmoil.
Preeti, you see, in 2022, we had witnessed the peak of the economic crisis, in which we saw serpentine queues before grocery stores and markets, and also before petrol stations. And that was the time when nobody in the entire world, except for India, came forward to help the island nation of Sri Lanka. And from then to now, there has been stability which has been primarily possible because of certain austerity measures which were adopted by the then government. That said, inflation is definitely down from 70%, which was witnessed in 2022, to about 0. And in fact, negative area was attained in the last month's inflation numbers. But that said, the price rise which was witnessed during 2022 is visible even to this day. And that is where the discontentment and anger exists among the people. They have been talking about a complete revamp of the economic system in which more stress is given on manufacturing sector and to build local industry. That is one area. The second area is to develop the human capital as well as increase the education and other institutions in the island. This is the second area. And the third area is, of course, revamp of the entire government system because there have been charges of corruption in the previous regimes. And that is something which people have taken a very serious view about. And these are some of the key areas where the people of Sri Lanka as well as the government, the new government, will definitely take certain decisive steps. And that's what needs to be seen once the parliamentary election is over and later the parliament will start performing.
All right, one last question. Ahmed, now this is for the first time that Sri Lanka has a leftist president. Also added to that, talking of the economic challenges, talking of stabilizing the economy, and also the corruption charges which you're talking of, and also the promises made by President Dissanayake. Do we expect the austerity measures to continue for the common people in the island nation? And also, what options does the president have at his hands right now?
You see, if we talk about the austerity measures which were adopted by the previous government and the entire election campaign, President Dissanayake had talked about reduction of income tax rates as well as making fuel prices cheaper. Not just that, he had also talked about slashing the electricity tariff rates, which directly impact the common man. And this is something which people had been, looking forward to, and it resonated well among the voters. And that was visible during the presidential elections. And same thing was talked about in the recent election campaigns as well. Now, what is expected is that the government will definitely ease some of these austerity measures, may not be entirely in one go, probably in staggered manner. However, we also have to remember that these austerity measures were a part of the IMF bailout financing package, and the government was necessitated to adopt them so that the government revenue increases. The government will have to find alternative revenue model in which they can generate sufficient revenue, then thereafter they can plan to take measures to ease the austerity measures. But that is still a long way from now. Once the new parliament comes into existence, they will go ahead with the immediate steps of getting a vote on account. The budget probably will be the next step, which might happen in February and March next year. And that is the time when we will probably get clear steps as to what will be the way forward for the new government. Preeti.
All right, Amit, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. And turning focus to US now, a rigorous campaigning season ended in the US and the nation elected its next president, Donald Trump. Outgoing US President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump met for a transitional meeting, and DD India's Antara Sinha gets you more on how it unfolded.
A much anticipated meeting between US President-elect Donald Trump and current incumbent Joe Biden. Trump was warmly greeted by outgoing President Joe Biden as they shook hands in the Oval Office. The meeting was part of a traditional transition meeting. That didn't happen in 2020. In a way, Biden was seen restoring a tradition that Trump broke when he refused to recognize his 2020 defeat against Biden. The meeting comes after a confrontational election campaign in which Biden dropped out following his disastrous debate performance against Trump.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President, thank you, Donald, congratulations. Thank you very much. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome.
The pair also discussed the Ukraine and West Asia conflicts. Biden argued support for Ukraine was good for US national security, as a strong and stable Europe would keep America from being dragged into war. While Trump has pledged to end the Russia-Ukraine war quickly. The two American leaders sat side by side before a roaring fire in the White House Oval Office, a peaceful scene that belied tensions between them. Antara Sinha for DD India.
As US President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office for his second term, he has announced a series of high-ranking administration positions. Let's take a quick look at these early picks. Trump announced that Susie Wiles, one of his two campaign managers, will be his White House Chief of Staff. Tom Homan, the former Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement during Trump's first administration, will lead border security efforts. Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and staunch Trump supporter, would be his ambassador to the United Nations. Former Congressman Lee Zeldin will oversee the Environmental Protection Agency, aligning with Trump's energy policy reforms. Zeldin, a staunch Trump ally, served in Congress from 2015 to 2023. Fox News host Pete Hegseth, a veteran of the Army National Guard, has been appointed as Secretary of Defense. Congressman and former Army Green Beret Mike Waltz will advise Trump on national security issues with a particular focus on China. Trump named tech billionaire Elon Musk and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, a former Republican presidential candidate, to lead a newly created Department of Government Efficiency. While South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, known for her strong stances during the COVID pandemic, will head the Department of Homeland Security. John Ratcliffe, former Director of National Intelligence under Trump, has been named the CIA Director. U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is expected to become Secretary of State. The senator has in the past years advocated for a muscular foreign policy with respect to U.S. geopolitical foes, including China, Iran, and Cuba. Trump has Matt Gaetz, a U.S. representative, to be his nominee for Attorney General, and Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic representative and critic of the Biden administration, will be Director of National Intelligence. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday nominated former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard as his incoming Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard has questioned the credibility of U.S. intelligence and denounced successive presidents over military interventions. Now, she has been asked to serve by Trump and lead the U.S. intelligence. Here's a detailed report.
She is a leading Hindu figure in US politics. Her father, born in American Samoa, continues to serve in the Hawaii State Senate and remains a Democrat. Gabbard's mother embraced Hinduism and raised her children in the tradition. Gabbard's first name, Tulsi, is a sacred plant in Hinduism. She is a lifelong vegetarian and swore her oath to enter Congress on the Bhagavad Gita. Gabbard got married in a Hindu ceremony to a Hawaii-based cinematographer, Abraham Williams. She is an ardent supporter of India's popular Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Like few others in US politics, Gabbard defies simple party categorization, a war veteran who denounces war, a Democrat turned Republican, and now an establishment skeptic sent to head part of it. Gabbard has direct experience with war, having served in Iraq with the Army National Guard of her native Hawaii. In 2022, she announced that she was exiting the Democratic Party. Her strident tone led critics to believe she was auditioning for roles in a future Republican administration. This view was reinforced when she appeared beside Trump in his latest campaign and announced she was becoming a Republican.
You're watching DD Indian News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, Israeli jets bomb commercial district in southern Beirut. Sudan extends opening of Adre crossing for aid delivery. UN welcomes the decision. And after election rout, Mauritius opposition leader Ramgoolam sworn in as the Prime Minister.
We are doing a deep dive into security dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region and also what this means going into the future for India and its rising position in the world.
The Quad has now become a foundational block within the Indo-Pacific, and the Biden administration has continued that momentum. Now, I don't see Trump Part 2 walking away from that, again, because it's something that they helped to resurrect.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's continue getting you more updates. U.S. Senate Republicans elected John Thune on Wednesday to lead the chamber next year, opting for a well-regarded insider and shrugging off a public pressure campaign by supporters of Donald Trump to pick a loyalist to the president-elect. The South Dakota senator's victory is a sign that the Senate could retain some degree of independence from Trump next year, when Republicans will control the White House and possibly both chambers of Congress. Republicans will hold at least 52 seats in the 100-seat Senate and are on track to retain a thin majority in the House of Representatives, where several races are yet to be decided. At a news conference, Thune said that he would aim to confirm Trump's nominees quickly and work to help him cut spending and bolster border security.
We have a mandate from the American people, a mandate not only to clean up the mess left by the Biden-Harris-Schumer agenda, but also to deliver on President Trump's priorities. We will make sure that the President and his team have the tools and the support that they need to enforce border security laws and to remove the violent criminals who are wreaking havoc in every one of our states.
The Republicans were declared as the majority party in the U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday, completing a clean sweep of Congress and the White House in last week's elections and handing incoming President Donald Trump vast legislative power. After more than a week of the counting of votes, the channels CNN and NBC projected that Trump's party reached the 218 seats needed to retain their majority in the 435-seat lower chamber, having already seized the Senate from the Democrats. Having control of both chambers of Congress clears the way for Trump to confirm his nomination for key administration positions. After the vote, U.S. Congressmen from South Carolina, Joe Wilson, and others recited the Pledge of Allegiance and congratulated the House Speaker on the majority.
Congratulations to Speaker Mike Johnson for his achievements of the passage of critical legislation in the House and his leadership in maintaining the Republican majority.
With majority in both Senate and House of Representatives, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump in his second term will enter the White House with utmost unbridled power. Also added with win in the popular electoral college, votes in all the swing states, he has more than just political victory, showing that he has captured the mind of the people, putting Democrats in full defensive. What does this mean, and whether there will be any challenge for Trump in his second term? Watch this in this report by DD India's Akhilesh Suman.
Donald Trump's victory in the US presidential poll has been emphatic. His nomination evident from the overwhelming more than 3 million ballot lead in popular votes against Democratic rival and US Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump garnered 312 electoral college votes to Harris's 226. It stands in stark contrast to his earlier win in 2016, when he had won more electoral college votes, but rival candidate Hillary Clinton got more popular vote. This time, Trump has turned the tables on Democrats, winning both electoral as well as popular votes, besides sweeping all the swing states. He is first Republican president in 20 years to achieve the feat. To add to his absolute authority, Republicans now command complete majority in Senate as well as in the House of Representatives. In that way, Trump will enjoy complete control over the levers of the government, including enormously powerful parliamentary committees. Trump is making a cabinet more of his choice than following the party's priorities, making a loyal team rather than going by party's choices. With its 6-3 conservative majority, the Supreme Court has recently given Republicans a slew of judicial victories, most notably the overturning of the nationwide right to abortion in 2022. The Supreme Court ruled this summer that presidents enjoy absolute immunity for official acts in office. The ruling stemmed from a federal criminal case brought against Donald Trump over his attempts to overturn the 2020 laws to Joe Biden. Now that Trump has once again become the president-elect, that case and others are expected to be thrown out or abandoned. But the US president-elect will have a test in midterm elections for the Senate within 2 years, when 1/3 of the members will retire to elect new members for the upper house. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
Members of President-elect Donald Trump's transition team are drawing up a list of military officers to be fired, potentially to include the Joint Chiefs of Staff, sources said, in what would be an unprecedented shakeup at the Pentagon. The planning for the firings is at an early stage after Trump's November 5th election victory and could change as Trump's administration takes shape, and the sources said who are familiar with the Trump's transition and requested anonymity to speak candidly about the plans. It was also unclear if Trump himself would endorse the plan, although in the past he has rallied extensively against defense leaders who have criticized him. U.S. prosecutors asked a federal appeals court on Wednesday to pause their bid to revive the criminal case accusing President-elect Donald Trump of illegally handling classified documents, citing his election victory. Special counsel Jack Smith, in a brief court filing, asked the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit to hold this appeal in abeyance to allow prosecutors time to assess the impact of Trump's impending return to the White House on the case. Trump was accused of illegally holding on to classified documents after he left office in 2021. A federal judge appointed by the bench by Trump dismissed the case in July after ruling that Smith was improperly appointed to the special counsel role, prompting prosecutors to appeal. Smith's prosecutors asked to weigh in by December 2nd on how to proceed in the case. They have already secured a similar pause in another federal case accusing Trump of attempting to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election. US President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping arrived on Thursday in Lima for an Asia-Pacific summit. Saturday's face-to-face will likely be the last encounter before a potentially tougher US-China relationship under Donald Trump. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan announced that discussions will address rising tensions from Taiwan and the South China Sea to China's role in stemming fentanyl ingredient flows. Biden also plans to confront Xi on China's suspected involvement in hacking US officials' communications, as well as China's support for Russia's actions in Ukraine and North Korea's troop presence in Russia. This marks their first interaction since an April phone call aimed at easing bilateral strains.
Part of what President Biden will communicate is that we need to maintain stability, clarity, predictability through this transition between the United States and China. And he will also really reinforce the point that in order for us to manage this competition responsibly going forward, we have to sustain over the long term the channels of communication at every level, particularly the military-to-military level.
U.S. Ambassador to Mexico Ken Salazar criticized Mexico's security situation, calling it unsafe and highlighting flaws in the previous administration's approach. He also condemned former President López Obrador's hugs, not bullets strategy, which sought to address root causes of the violence, but according to Salazar, did not work. He expressed hope that newly inaugurated President Claudia Sheinbaum would tackle crime more effectively, urging increased security investment.
The reality is that at this moment, Mexico is not safe. So how are things going to work with the United States government to ensure that we reach a point where there is a safety on both sides of the border, and that includes fentanyl, arms trafficking, the crimes, and human trafficking. The hugs, not bullet strategy, did not work.
Israeli forces have launched fresh strikes across southern and central Lebanon again, carrying out at least 4 airstrikes on Wednesday. Israeli airstrikes pounded the Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs for a second consecutive day as Lebanon waited to hear Washington's latest ceasefire proposals after a U.S. official expressed hope that a truce could be reached. The Israeli military said its air force had destroyed 9 Hezbollah weapons storage facilities and command centers in strikes in the Beirut area, and that Hezbollah fired 40 projectiles into Israel. The exchange of fire came as right-leaning members of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet expressed support for President-elect Donald Trump's latest picks for his incoming administration. Israel's defense minister said in a video released on Wednesday that he would not agree to any Lebanon ceasefire that does not ensure a disarmed Hezbollah withdraws north of Lebanon's Litani River. Now, Katz, who became defense minister last week, made the comments during his first visit to the Northern Command. His comments come as Lebanon waited to hear Washington's latest ceasefire proposals after a U.S. official expressed hope that a truce could be reached.
We will not make any ceasefires, and we will not stop and will not take out foot off the pedal, and we will not allow any arrangement that does not include achieving the goals of the war, which is disarming Hezbollah, withdrawing it from beyond the Litani River, and mainly creating the true conditions for the residents of the north to return to their homes safely.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah said that it launched a drone attack targeting Israel's military headquarters and Ministry of Defense in the city of Tel Aviv on Wednesday. In a statement, the Lebanese militant group said it conducted an aerial attack with a squadron of exploding drones on the site, housing Israel's main defense institutions. In 2 statements on Wednesday, the military said it had intercepted 2 drones and 40 projectiles launched from Lebanon in attacks that caused no injuries. Hezbollah and Israel have been at conflict since last September, when the Israeli military escalated its airstrikes on Lebanon and sent ground troops across the border. Let's get you updates from Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Ukrainian forces repelled a major Russian attack near Kupiansk in northeastern Ukraine on Wednesday. Ukraine's General Staff reported Russian forces launched 4 waves of attacks using 15 armored vehicles, including tanks, but Ukrainian defenders skillfully destroyed them and eliminated many personnel. Heavy fighting also erupted in Pokrovsk, where Ukraine repelled 35 of 36 Russian assaults. Meanwhile, President Zelensky reported intense Russian activity in Donetsk, with regional prosecutors confirming a Russian attack killed 2 civilians west of Donetsk city. Mauritian politician Naveen Ramgoolam was sworn in as the Prime Minister for his 4th term on Wednesday, a decade after he last left power. Ramgoolam took the oath of office during a brief ceremony at the State House, the official residence of President Prithviraj Singh Rupan, in front of a selection of lawmakers, foreign diplomats and top civil servants. His alliance Do Changement coalition won a landslide 60 of the 62 National Assembly seats with 62.6% of the votes in Sunday's ballot. Afterwards, Ramgoolam, who previously served as Prime Minister from 1995 to 2000 and 2005 to 2014, said that the country had voted with rage and that he intended to transform it. Authorities in war-racked Sudan have authorized the delivery of humanitarian aid via the key border crossing of Adre for the next 3 more months. Sudan's Sovereign Council said on Wednesday that it would extend the use of the Adre border crossing with Chad, seen as an essential by aid agencies for the delivery of food and other supplies to the areas. The United Nations welcomed the decision to keep Adre open for another 3 months.
We very much welcome the Sudanese authorities' decisions to extend the opening of the Adre crossing from Chad, for the United Nations to continue delivering humanitarian assistance to people in need in Sudan for an additional 3 months. Adre is a critical lifeline for millions of people, but alone it is not sufficient. As needs continue to spiral in Darfur and across Sudan, it is more important than ever that all necessary routes, including those crossing borders and those crossing conflict lines inside Sudan, are available for the rapid and efficient movement of humanitarian supplies and personnel into areas of greatest needs.
You're watching DD India News. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, COP presidencies, Troika explore in COP29 building on outcome and outputs of COP28. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar arrives in UAE to strengthen bilateral ties and enhance cooperation. And on World Diabetes Day today, we get a special report on awareness on physical and mental challenges of diabetes.
Our habitats are turning into concrete jungles, and that is concerning, but there is hope even in this grim reality.
Our rivers are like lifelines. They are spaces for humans, for biodiversity, and yes, we have neglected them so far, but really that's an opportunity for us to restore them to their natural conditions.
We now have species that can adapt by conserving the water they have instead of letting it evaporate and being easy to care for.
We have always been farmers in my family. We used to do chemical farming with hybrid seed varieties, but now we have switched to organic farming with natural seeds.
This embankment will be removed and the river will be widened to cover the grassland up to the wider flood embankments on both the Swiss and Austrian side.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you more updates. The COP presidencies Troika, which includes the United Arab Emirates, COP28, Azerbaijan, COP29 and Brazil, COP30, met in Baku on Wednesday within the framework of the COP29 to assess the roadmap to mission 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, the Troika discussed the progress made in implementing the outcome of the global stocktake and also the remaining gaps in developing and implementing ambitious climate policies in the upcoming rounds of nationally determined contributions. Wednesday's meeting reinforced the cohesion among the COP presidencies and set clear priorities and strategic actions required for 2025, building on the outcomes and outputs of COP28, implementing the results of COP29 and paving the way ahead for COP30. The troika reflects the commitment of the three presidencies of COP28 hosted by the UAE last year, COP29 currently hosted by Azerbaijan, and COP30 to be held in Brazil next year to submit their NDC aligned with the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal and guided by the provisions of the historic UAE agreement by early 2025. Let's get to weather updates now. Colombian President Gustavo Petro estimated more than $300 million will be needed for initial aid to address the emergency caused by heavy rains in the northwest of the country. Torrential rain across Colombia's Pacific coast and Andean regions has displaced more than 90,000 people. The extreme weather has triggered widespread flooding and landslides across the South American country, leading Colombia's first leftist leader to declare a nationwide state of disaster on Sunday. Residents of Spain's Valencia region prepared for another round of heavy rains and storms just 2 weeks after flash floods left rivers overflowing and caused extensive damage across the area and several other parts of the country. Flood-hit municipalities have cancelled all non-essential activities, advised residents to work from home, and urged volunteers to pause clean-up efforts while the sandbags are stacked for extra protection. With recovery efforts still underway, uncertainty looms over the potential impact of the new storm system. Bushfire erupted in Manhattan's Inwood Hill Park on Wednesday. Billowing smoke from the fire was clearly visible from the Bronx. The blaze, which started late last week, was 30% contained. The cause of the Jennings Creek fire was also undetermined last week. A 2-acre fire broke out in the New York City borough of Brooklyn, damaging its last remaining forest called Ravine in Prospect Park. The fire was extinguished the next day. Flights to Bali resumed on Thursday after massive volcanic eruptions at nearby Mount Lewotobi, Laki grounded air travel. On Wednesday, Bali's airport saw 83 international flights cancelled when the volcano sent a 9-kilometer ash plume into the sky, disrupting plans for thousands of travelers. With conditions now improved, Qantas and Jetstar have restored services, with 6 Jetstar flights, 1 scheduled Qantas flight, and 2 delayed flights resuming. However, the airport's general manager reported an additional 32 cancellations early on Thursday, though most flights remain scheduled. Labuan Bajo, another tourist airport near the volcano, has also reopened. The Volcanology Agency reported more ash and lava from Lewotobi overnight, but ash is moving away from Bali's airport. The volcano has erupted more than a dozen times over the last 2 weeks, killing at least 9 people and forcing the evacuation of thousands. Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world now. Norway introduces home test HPV virus, aiming to reduce the incidence of cervical cancer in the country. Every year, around 300 women and females get cervical cancer in Norway. The new home test allows women to test themselves for HPV, the primary cause of cervical cancer, in the privacy of their own homes. The FBI agents raided the Manhattan apartment of Shane Copeland, the CEO of a Polymarket, a prediction market platform that accurately forecasted Donald Trump's victory in the 2024 presidential election. Copeland was not provided with a reason for the raid, but the source suspected that it was political retribution since Polymarket accurately predicted an easy Trump triumph over Vice President Kamala Harris. 4 people who allegedly dressed as bears and damaged their own luxury cars in a bid to defraud insurance companies were arrested in the U.S. state of California. The suspects are accused of using the unusual tactic in an attempt to make fraudulent claims for extensive damage to high-end cars, including a Rolls-Royce. Thousands of illegal miners are stranded in a disused gold mine in Stilfontein, South Africa, enduring extreme conditions with no access to food or water. The miners, many of whom had been working in hazardous weather, are now facing major circumstances. Last week, in an effort to curb illegal mining activities, police rounded up 834 clandestine miners who had resurfaced after security forces cut off their food and water supplies. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be embarking on a three-nation visit on Saturday. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, while briefing media, said that Prime Minister's visit to Brazil is for the 19th G20 summit to be held on November 18th and 19th.
Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will be embarking on a three-nation visit on Saturday, the 16th of November. He'll go to Nigeria, to Brazil, and to Guyana. The visit to Brazil is for the 19th G20 summit that's being held on the 18th and 19th of November. This is the Prime Minister's third official visit to Brazil. This particular G20 summit is also going to be a very special summit because it will be the first time that the African Union will take its place in the G20 grouping as a member. You would all recall that it was at the New Delhi summit last year that the African Union was inducted as a full member of the G20.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro on the 18th and 19th of November to take part in the 2024 G20 summit. India is the founding member of the grouping of the world's largest 20 economies and was instrumental as last year's host in getting the African Union, comprising 55 nations, full membership during last year's summit in New Delhi. DD India's Gautam Roy has put together this report to show what's in store this year in Rio.
Leaders of the world's 20 largest economies, along with the African Union, will be in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro for the 2024 G20 summit. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be participating in it as the leader of the world's fastest growing economy.
The visit to Brazil is for the 19th G20 summit that's being held on the 18th and 19th of November. This is the Prime Minister's third official visit to Brazil. This particular G20 summit is also going to be a very special summit because it will be the first time that the African Union will take its place in the G20 grouping.
India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant has told DD India that the PM will be playing a constructive role in taking New Delhi's G20 agenda from last year as host forward. He will also help Brazil pursue its objectives of eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development and reform of global governance institutions forward, with emphasis on global economic growth and sustainable development.
The Prime Minister will focus on a range of issues concerning the global South, and the challenges relate to driving growth, balanced, sustainable, inclusive growth. And the challenge is that the global growth is slowest at the turn of the century.
Let's understand what is G20. This will be the 19th summit of the G20 leaders, a grouping which came together after the 1999 Asian financial crisis. Finance ministers and heads of central banks of member countries met in the following years. In 2007, when the global financial crisis hit, the grouping was elevated to the level of heads of state and government. The first G20 summit took place in 2008 in Washington, D.C. G20 statements and decisions are non-binding upon members and follow a consensual approach. Over the years, the G20 has gone beyond financial matters to also deliberate and act to achieve sustainable development goals and further the cause of global peace. Last year, despite tremendous challenges, the New Delhi Declaration was brought on the first day of the summit with consensus on the Ukraine conflict. This year, while this conflict remains unresolved, the West Asian conflict has come up as another formidable challenge.
This will be a complex issue. There will be many more challenges. We struggled with it. We did about 300 hours of negotiation on one para of Russia-Ukraine. We failed 16 times but arrived at a consensus on the Russia-Ukraine war. Where even the United Nations has not been able to arrive at a consensus so far.
The upcoming change of guard at the White House could also become a factor during the deliberations due to President-elect Donald Trump's MAGA agenda, which is centered on high tariffs and climate change denial. Despite the challenges, the grouping has been moving forward, taking incremental steps to resolve differences and take collective action in multiple spheres through the years. It is hoped that even this year, progress will be made in Rio to benefit the earth and humanity. Gautam Roy, DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar arrived in the United Arab Emirates on Thursday for an official visit. Now, according to the Consulate General of India in Dubai, Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit aims to further strengthen bilateral ties and enhance cooperation between the two countries. The visit comes amid strengthened relations between India and the UAE, marked by frequent high-level exchanges and signing of a comprehensive economic partnership agreement in 2022. Meanwhile, campaigning is in full swing for assembly elections in Maharashtra and Jharkhand, with senior leaders of various political parties holding multiple rallies and roadshows in the two states to garner support for their candidates. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi is set to intensify BJP's campaign in high-stakes Maharashtra by addressing public rallies in Sambhaji Nagar, Panvel and also Mumbai today. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari will address public meetings in Dharashiv, Solapur and Sangli. On the other hand, leader of opposition in Lok Sabha and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi will be campaigning in Nandurbar and Nanded today. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge will be campaigning in Igatpuri and Pune. Sharad Pawar is going to campaign in different constituencies in Pune. Maharashtra will vote in a single phase on November 20th, with counting of votes scheduled to take place on November 23rd. There are 288 assembly seats in the state. World Diabetes Day is observed annually on November 14th to honor the birth of Sir Frederick Banting, the scientist who discovered insulin in 1921, revolutionizing the treatment of diabetes. Recognized by the United Nations, this global event aims to raise awareness about diabetes, its prevention and effective management strategies. Here's a report ahead.
Diabetes, a silent but deadly disease that affects millions around the world. It is a condition in which the pancreas in body does not produce insulin. Insulin is a hormone that helps body's cells absorb glucose and keeps the amount of sugar in blood under control. When someone has diabetes, the production of insulin in the body is reduced or stopped. Diabetes risk factors: family history of diabetes, obesity, lack of physical activity, not exercising, high blood pressure, high levels of cholesterol and triglycerides, smoking, gestational diabetes. With no noticeable symptoms in early stages, it gradually progresses, causing damage to various body parts and leading to a host of complications. Regular checkups are crucial for individuals with diabetes to monitor their condition and prevent further complications. By adopting a healthy lifestyle, the risk of diabetes can be reduced. Increase awareness about diabetes in your home and family and take steps to prevent diabetes. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. The Indian Air Force is participating in the Bahrain International Air Show at Sakhir Air Base, celebrating and reinforcing the bond of friendship and cultural ties between India and Bahrain. Over the next 2 days, the Sarang helicopter team of the IAF will display audiences with their spectacular aerial displays, a remarkable testament to skill and teamwork in the skies. Delhi residents woke up to thick smog and poor air quality as air quality of national capital remained in the very poor category, with an air quality index of over 400 in many areas. Authorities urged residents to limit outdoor activities, especially the vulnerable groups such as children, the elderly and those with respiratory conditions. The Central Consumer Protection Authority has issued guidelines that all coaching institutes must disclose relevant information regarding their students and courses to prevent parents and candidates from being misled. Consumer Affairs Secretary issued a set of guidelines in New Delhi against the misleading advertisement used by various coaching institutes. Let's get you some business updates now. British consumer group Which is launching legal action against Apple, accusing the tech giant of breaking competition law by pushing customers into its iCloud service. Which claims Apple made it hard for users to switch to alternative storage providers, leading them to pay once they exceeded the free 5 GB limit. This lack of competition allegedly cost consumers up to £13.36 this year. Apple denies any anti-competitive behavior, insisting iCloud is optional and users have third-party choices. If successful, this case could see 40 million UK Apple users entitled to nearly £3 billion in compensation, which says this action aims to secure fairer treatment for consumers and promote a competitive digital market. A Paris court has ordered Google to halt a controversial project accused of censoring some media articles in search results. Now, this injunction came after the SEPM union, representing French magazine staff, claimed Google planned to suppress certain content from news publishers amid a dispute over online rights. Google defended the project, calling it a limited experiment to assess European news content's impact on the search. Tensions have risen as tech giants profit from news content without fully compensating the creators, spurring the EU to enforce neighboring rights. The US dollar revisited a one-year high against major peers on Thursday as a fourth straight winning session from momentum sparked by Donald Trump's election victory eclipsed a rise in bets for Federal Reserve easing. The dollar dipped briefly on Wednesday after a measure of US consumer inflation met economists' forecasts, keeping the Fed on track to reduce rates at their next meeting in December. But the currency soon recovered and then rallied to new session highs. Cryptocurrency Bitcoin also shot to a fresh record high of $93,480 overnight and was rising back towards that level early in Asia Day. Trump has vowed to make United States the crypto capital of the planet. Up next, we get you sports updates on DD Indian News Hour. The French police officials have ramped up security ahead of the Nations League match between Israel and France on Thursday. Ahead of the match, protesters took to the streets in Paris on Wednesday, decreeing the upcoming soccer match. Some 4,000 police personnel will secure the event, which will be also attended by French President Emmanuel Macron. The authorities have increased security following violent clashes between locals and Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam last week. Police officers will be deployed at Stade de France and across public transport networks. Israel coach Ran Ben Shimon said that he hoped supporters would still turn out to watch their match against France despite the security concerns.
I want to prepare my national team to the best possible way of playing against a very strong national team of France the best we can. I hope as much as we can, and I hope also so that people from the Israeli community around here will come to see our national game.
In other Nations League match, England will take on Greece at home on Thursday. Harry Kane and his England teammates hit the training pitch before travelling to Athens. England are second in their group with 9 points, while Greece have won all the 4 games so far and are at the top. England's interim boss, Lee Carsley's aim is to help England gain promotion to League A before he returns to managing the under-21 side. Carsley also forced to make wholesale changes to his squad after several key players withdrew due to injury. On to cricket, India defeated South Africa by 11 runs in a nail-biting third T20 international at Centurion on Wednesday. With this win, the visitors took a 2-1 lead in the 4-match series. Getting an invitation to bat first, India posted a mammoth total of 219 for 6 with the help of Tilak Verma's maiden T20 international century. India lost Sanju Samson on the second ball of the innings, but Tilak and Abhishek Sharma stitched a solid 107-run partnership to put India in a commanding position, while rest of the Indian batters failed to fire. Tilak dug his heels and went on to score his 151 balls. He remained not out on 107 off 56 balls. In reply, the Proteas were restricted to 208 for 7. The last match of the 4-match series will take place on Friday. India's two-times Olympic medalist PV Sindhu lost to Canada's Michelle Lee in a nail-biting second-round clash of Japan Masters this morning. Earlier, Sindhu defeated Thailand's Busan Ongbang-Rufan in a swift match, winning 21-12, 21-8 in just 38 minutes to enter the round of 16. The 29-year-old has struggled to close out deciders after staying competitive in her matches in the recent competitions. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.